Hey everyone, it's Michael from No Folds, and today I've got this masculine waterfall card for you. Really fun card. Your recipient will get it. They see a little notice there to pull, and when they do, the little images just kind of fall away, and we see that we have this nice sentiment shown here, happy birthday, and then when they push it back up, our image is revealed. And then the inside we just have a nice sentiment here, wishing them a splendid birthday. And this card is actually not that difficult to make, surprisingly, so let's go ahead and get started. To make this card, you'll need an 8.5 by 5.5 inch piece of paper, folded in half at 4.25 inches for a standard card base, a 2-inch by 9-inch piece of paper, this will be the pull strip, 4 2-inch by 2-inch squares of paper for the actual waterfall, a 2.5-inch by 6-inch piece of paper for stamping your images on, a 4 by 5.25 inch piece of paper for the inside of the card where you'll stamp your sentiment, and a 4 by 5.25 inch piece of patterned or color paper for the outside, as well as a strip of paper that's 4 by 1 inch in the same pattern or color. So the first thing you'll want to do is take that 2.5 by 6-inch piece of paper and stamp your 4 images on it. Now you can see I used this stamp set here from Recollections from Michaels to stamp the hat, the glasses, the mustache, and the bow tie. And I used the Stampin' Up! Ink Old Olive, Night of Navy, Chocolate Chip, and Cherry Cobbler. After you have your images stamped, simply grab your detail scissors and we're going to fussy cut around all of these images. So you can see here's everything after I fussy cut it out, and I just left a little bit of a border around because the next thing we need to do is actually distress everything. Let me move those out of the way. We're going to bring in all of our paper except for your pattern piece that's going to be on the front. We're going to just set that to the side. But everything else, we'll need to use our distressing tool and our distress ink to distress the edges. So go ahead and do that. So you can see I've distressed everything now. And we're going to actually put everything else aside except for our 2 by 9-inch piece of paper, because what we need to do now is score it. So I put the 2 by 9-inch piece of paper on my scoreboard, and I'm going to score it at 2 inches, at 2 3/4 inch, at 3.5, and at 4.25. Now that it's scored, you'll simply want to fold it on those score lines. And this is what we'll attach those 2 by 2 pieces of paper to, and that will become our pull strip. Now you can see that I stamped a vertical sentiment on the pull strip just below that last score line, because this will be visible to your recipient when they pull it out. And I just used a happy birthday stamp that I had, and you can use something else that's vertical. It makes a really nice appearance when it pulls out. Then I also used my Martha Stewart letter set to just add the word pull here, because that will be visible to the recipient. That kind of gives them the indication to pull. Then I used the Stampin' Up! Chocolate Chip ink. I took the inside piece of paper for the card and I stamped the sentiment for the inside on, and I just had this wishing you a simply splendid birthday sentiment, which I stamped in chocolate chip ink from Stampin' Up! Now that we have everything cut, stamped, scored, and folded, it's time to actually assemble the card. We'll start by adding the inside piece of paper, and we'll make sure to center that within the card. Now I just used my Tombow snail adhesive here, which I already pre-applied to the back. Then in the front, we'll take our pattern piece of paper, and I also used the Tombow on this. And again, we'll just make sure to center that on the card. Now for the next piece, we're actually going to want to use some of this Sook Wang tape. It's very sticky, and the reason for that is this piece is going to get a lot of stress on it because the waterfall slide mechanism is going to be attached to it. So we want to make sure that that's really stuck down. Now with the pattern piece of paper, it's important to try to line this up as best you can with your pattern. That way it will kind of blend into the background. Of course, it doesn't have to be perfect and probably won't be, but just try to line that up as best you can. Next, we'll take our long strip of paper with the sentiment on it, and we'll slide the sentiment underneath of that strip of paper that we attached to the front. And on the very top here, I added 2 strips of the Sook Wang tape because again, this is going to get a lot of stress on it from being pulled. And we're just going to try to line that up with this edge aligning with the bottom edge of this strip of paper. And just try to make sure that that is as close to centered on the page as you can. So there we go, it's taped down. And we can see when we push it back up, sentiment is hidden. Now what we need to do is attach the 2x2 squares on the front. Now I just ran some Tombow adhesive over the top of this strip. So I put it across the entire square here, 1 strip in between the fold lines here, 1 here, and 1 here. And then we'll start with one of our 2x2 pieces of paper, and we'll line that up with the bottom part of the strip, making sure that it is falling underneath of our score line. And then we'll just continue to add the 2x2 squares onto the strip, making sure to line them up underneath of the fold line. And you just go all the way up to the top. The final step in the card making process is to add our shapes, and I just used some zigzag 2-way glue because these are kind of an odd shape and maybe a bit more difficult to get the tape on. So we'll just kind of center it onto the square, and notice that my hat does overhang the sides a little bit. That's perfectly fine. You'll just want to make sure not to add glue if it does overhang. And then we're just going to pull it down a little bit so we can add our next piece, which are the glasses. And these we're going to put a little bit closer to the bottom. And the reason for that is when this overlaps, you don't want this to get hidden underneath. And then we'll pull it down to our next step, which would be the mustache. And again, we're going to put that closer to the bottom edge there. And then finally, we have our bow tie, which I'm going to just let hang off a little bit more underneath there. And there we have it. When we push this back closed, we've got our 4 shapes and our completed card. Then when your recipient receives it, they've got the little pull notice there. They just pull that, those fall away, and then they've got that nice sentiment, happy birthday. Well, I hope you enjoyed making this card, this masculine waterfall card. If you do attempt this or have any variations, I'd love to see them. Make sure to post them in the comments below. And also make sure that you subscribe for future videos because we'll definitely be posting more tutorials, and we'll see you next time.